I am joined by Mark Voyger, military analyst, former advisor to commander of the U.S. Army in Europe. Mark, hello and welcome.
Good evening, Yuri. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure giving interviews to Espresso.
Thank you. And my first question for today would be as follows. On Wednesday, White House National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications, John Kirby, said that Washington does not approve the use of the American weapons by the Ukrainian Armed Forces to fire on targets in Russia. But then he added that all the weapons that the Ukrainian Armed Forces have now are Ukrainian weapons, and that they can use them as they see fit. Can this be considered a sanction from Washington to launch a counteroffensive?
Well, look, the counteroffensive doesn't need Washington sanctions to be launched. The counteroffensive is obviously a major operation or a series of operations that your military will launch, apparently this summer in coordination with your political leadership. So it's entirely dependent on the decision of your, government, the president, the supreme commander, obviously your top military. So, I don't think you need American permission to go ahead with in particular with the counteroffensive and liberate your territories. I mean, you have, let's put it this way, the permanent sanction, the permanent support, not only of the U.S., but of the West, to reclaim and liberate your territories that have been occupied by Russia, including Crimea. And regarding the launching of attacks on targets, against targets on Russian territory, I think in this case, Admiral Kirby is just, trying to create a certain dose of ambiguity with the purpose of trying to evade a certain escalation with Russia. That's normal. I mean, that we shouldn't read too much into it. Obviously, the position of the U.S. administration from the start of the war has been to prevent a direct escalation between Russia and NATO, and of course with the U.S. But at the same time, as you could see, the moment you receive Western weapons, they're Ukrainian weapons, and as the British defense minister has stated clearly, Ukraine has the right to launch attacks against targets in Russia in response to the brutal, barbaric terrorist attacks that the Russian regime has been launching against your population, your civilian targets for over a year. So again, nothing to be worried about. I'm sure your military and political leadership will proceed with the best course of action when it comes to selecting the targets in preparation for the much-anticipated summer counteroffensive.
Oh, I see. Mark, what can military actions in Shebekino, which is in the Belgorod region of Russia, mean for Kremlin? What are the possible consequences?
This action shows to the Kremlin regime, to Putin himself, that Russia's borders are not impermeable, that they can be penetrated. And it's a strong blow, a reputational blow against the Kremlin's reputation, against Putin's reputation, personally. And I think more and more of these actions we will see, more and more of those. It's not the first one, obviously, and it won't be the last, most likely. This penetration of the Russian territory by the Russian Volunteer Corps and other Russian units, also attacks of this nature, really show the Russian population that the Kremlin cannot protect them, and it makes them feel the taste of really what the Ukrainian people, the civilians, have been suffering for so long. And so the idea is that for the first time, maybe the Russian population now would would ultimately realize that the Kremlin, that Putin, is bad for Russia. I mean, bad for them, that they cannot protect them. And now, the idea is that this will create discontent within Russia that the Kremlin will not be able to control in the future. So this will ideally lead to the collapse of the regime in the future, especially after the success of your counteroffensive.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Latest news, trends and analytics on Spotlight Ukraine. Like, share and subscribe.